over me. She's over me. She caught me with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. In my heart, I can't let go, I'm breaking apart, controlling me, controlling me. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Paranormal Portal Bedtime Stories from Beyond. I hope you're having a wonderful night. This is pre-recorded, of course, because unfortunately the night that this is airing, I had other plans, but I couldn't go and do my other plans unless I knew I was giving you a Paranormal Portal to enjoy in my absence. So actually, it's not like I'm gone at all, really. So we got that going for us. I'm here with you, and I'm always here in spirit, even when I'm not here in reality. So I'm not even sure that makes sense. But anyway, I hope you guys are all set to go and ready to be entertained, because I'm going to do the best I know how to give you a wonderful show. So I hope you're all ready, because it's time for bed. All right, it's all official now. Got all the intros out of the way, and we are now underway here on the Paranormal Portal Bedtime Stories from Beyond. And I'm your host, Brent Thomas. And let's see what kind of mayhem I can bring to your listening ears this night. I hope you're all set, have a nice refreshment, turn the lights down low, lit the candles, and are all relaxed and tucked in, because I got some stories for you. What stories? Well, let me just tell you, I got a bunch, and I'm currently pulling them up right now. A bunch, just a bunch of fun in the paranormal sense. So we'll see how many times Ohio comes up tonight, because my God, whatever the hell's going on in Ohio, ladies and gentlemen, it's going on a lot. They got everything there. It's craziness. All right, so actually I just got done doing Sunday's live Bedtime Stories from Beyond, and now this is being recorded right after that. So if you notice the same attire, it's because honestly I'm doing it Sunday night, but you're viewing it Tuesday night, so it's the miracle of modern technology. But I'm not actually a slob. I do shower and change clothes regularly. So all right, the first one tonight is coming from Colorado. Let me see this a second. Did I already? Blah, 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 blah. I don't know if I closed one that I had already read, so I want to make sure. No, this is different. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Right. All right. just want to make sure I wasn't going to be repeating a story in my clumsiness and in my overworked state. Of course, I'm always giving you guys 110%. So here we go. The first one's coming from Colorado. And let's see what's going on in Colorado tonight, shall we? It says this story took place about 12 years ago, and I was 14 years old and living in a townhouse at the north end of Colorado Springs with a boy. No, wait. This is actually the one I read. This is the one I was going to check. This is one I already read, so I'm not going to read that again. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. That's me trying to be organized and failing miserably. However, I just, for the record, I started Sunday's live episode without having plugged in my webcam. So you can see this seems to be my trend for the night. So I'm actually doing better in the, if you were to weigh the errors, this is the lesser of the errors. But anyway, let's see what's going on in Virginia. This one's coming out of Virginia. It's a real short and sweet one. So it says, I'm a Buddhist nun called an Ani, A-N-I, and I live near the Manassas battlefields in Virginia, and I've frequently gone there to pray for the lives that were lost so tragically. The battlefields cover many miles, and some of the bloodiest battles of the U.S. Civil War were fought in that area. Many Buddhists believe that praying for the dead can help them, especially if they died in confusion or misery, and I wanted to help anyone trapped there if I could. Well, a couple of years ago, I went into the battlefields as usual and did my prayers, and this time I chose a new site and the location of a mass grave of unknown Union and Confederate soldiers, and I thought how horrible it was that these young people died and were buried without their families ever knowing conclusively what had happened. When I returned home that day, my television set turned itself on and off twice. It has never done that before, or since, and I prayed again and asked forgiveness from any spirit I might have brought home with me. I haven't been back there since, and I've always heard that the intent of the prayers is what matters, not the faith, but I think maybe I offended a spirit out there because when my TV turned itself on and off, I felt my hair stand on end and an awful feeling in my stomach. Well, there is that, I guess. Maybe a spirit is upset because that wasn't the religion they were shown. But I think this person is right, that I think that a prayer of the heart is still a prayer of the heart. It's still a prayer, hoping for that spirit to have peace and to find rest in such tragedy. But it's just got to be a fresh kind of hell to be knocked down in a battle and stuck there, in that same place. So hopefully those prayers help, and I hope that spirit left her alone or him alone. I'm not sure whether it's a him or her, but anyway, let's move on to the next one. And this one is from Virginia. And it says, let me start off by saying that I have lived in what can only be considered haunted houses on and off my whole life. I'm currently 31, and this includes both my apartments that I moved into upon leaving my parents' home. I've seen as few things that I can't 100% explain. Felt things. I don't think that sentence made sense. I think they meant I've seen a few things that I can't 100% explain. Felt things and even know things that I probably shouldn't. This story is about my old apartment, which was in Pinewell Commons, and I moved in mid-year in 1997, and it's a 3-story brick old building built in the 1920s, and the units are seriously small, less than 300 square feet, but considering I was only 21 and poor, it was priced absolutely right. In the middle of the building was an elevator, and the very first day that I saw it, I really didn't like it. I didn't know why, and didn't really care. It just really gave me the willies. My apartment was on the second floor of the house on the backside. For the first year or so, I didn't spend much time in my apartment due to work and family issues, so if anything happened, I really never noticed it. It wasn't until year number 3 that I started to notice things, and the first thing was a male figure dressed in an old sea coat, smoking a pipe, and who would walk down the main staircase at odd hours. And I thought he was a new tenant and basically just ignored him until one day, while carrying up my laundry from the basement, I met him in the hallway, and he was standing at the landing of my floor, staring at me with his pipe in his mouth. And I opened up my mouth to say, "Excuse me," and he disappeared. Yeah, I double taked it, but shrugged it off and logged it away. I would see him every great once in a while, but always at strange hours. Nothing else happened for a while until I spotted a new figure. This time it was a woman, almost a year later, and she was slowly walking down the hallway, but that wasn't the alarming bit. She was dressed in late 19th or 20th century clothing, complete with bustle and feather fan, and she turned towards me, and I remember seeing her bright green eyes over the fan, and she nodded at me and then disappeared. Again, I logged it, but I didn't let it worry me and continued on my way. These are awesome sightings. These are incredible. About this time, I gained a boyfriend who, for the lack of better words, was dabbling in the arts. He was also slightly mentally unwell. Well, unfortunately for me, he did something, brought something, whatever, into view that I wasn't overly excited with. It started with a figure walking back and forth in front of my door, and when I would look out the peephole, nobody was there. A few weeks of this, then it changed, and now when the footsteps started, you could see shadows underneath the door, but still nothing visible in the hallway. And then one day, I heard the footsteps again, and this time they stopped directly in front of the door. I could see the shadow of the feet, and I got up to check, and this complete and utter terror overtook me. I knew if I got close to that door, something very bad was going to happen. I sat back down on my sofa for 4 hours waiting until I looked over and noticed the shadows were gone. Shortly after, I broke up with that man, and although I would hear the footsteps once in a while after that, I never got that gut-wrenching feeling of terror again. Then for almost another year, nothing major happened. I continued to see both the old man and the painted lady, and that's what I started to call them, and I gained a new boyfriend, and this time things worked out great, but new things started to occur in the apartment, and first was the elevator. It was flooded during a hurricane and stopped working, and I always got a strange sense of fear from it, but now I was almost dreading walking by those doors. Late at night, you could hear the car shifting in the shaft, or that's what I hoped it was, and I swear it sounded angry. Yes, angry. And it wasn't just me who felt like that. Both my boyfriend and several friends also told me the same thing. Another new disturbance was the shower ghost. Laugh all you want, but I used to enjoy long soaks in the shower after work, and it really relaxed and refreshed me, but after around year 5, strange things started happening. After spending a few in the shower, the curtain would attack me. At first, I thought it was the steam buildup, and I would put bottles on the edges and leave the door open, and it would still do it. Even if I was taking a cold shower, I kind of blew it off until one day I fell asleep in the shower, and I started having this dream where this man was trying to wake me. And he was afraid, and I was going to drown, and he kept hitting me over and over. And finally, I snapped awake when the curtain blew in and knocked off all 5 bottles, or all 6 bottles. Afterward, I got the impression that somebody wanted me out of the shower, fearing I was going to drown. And this continued to the day we left that apartment. Note, it never did this to my boyfriend, who often took scalding hot showers. A few more noteworthy occurrences happened. A few fell into the world of ghosts. Others I'm still not sure of. Names being called, things touching me, small items moved, the cat often freaking out. The biggest thing I recall was what I call the baby scream. One afternoon I was sleeping on my stomach, my face toward the headboard. I was out cold when a scream woke me up. And upon opening my eyes directly in front of what should have been the headboard, but I saw a baby's face. Its mouth was open in a scream, and its eyes were squeezed shut. Oh, dear God, that's horrible. I recoiled in shock, and it faded away instantly. I'm not sure what that was, but it has never repeated itself there or anywhere else. Well, thank God. That's terrible. The last major thing to start happening the last year or so We were in that apartment and was the solid white forms. What would appear to be the opposite of a shadow, it was a white outline in the form of a human male, would walk by doorways in the apartment, always out of the corner of your eyes or from beside you, never looking straight on. And also this would occur in any doorway in the apartment. There was 6 doors in a one-room apartment, including the closet, and many people saw these. My boyfriend, several friends, my youngest sister, and myself. They were never threatening, just alarming. After 8 long years, we finally moved, and not far, just 2 miles down the road, the new landlords, renovated the building and re-leased it out, but I've never been back to check if anything still happens, but I've often wondered, but I've got the new place to worry about now. That's pretty cool. Good story. Really cool experiences. That's awesome seeing those kind of apparitions being just like people you'd see everywhere else. And I often wonder how many times have any of us just passed a spirit, not knowing it was a spirit. Like you're walking down a street in a town that you're not familiar with and someone passes you. I mean, what if they weren't really there? Or not there in the terms that we're used to anyway. I think there's that. I bet you that happens more than we realize, but we're just not, I don't know, tuned to it, I guess. Very cool, though. All right, the next story is coming out of District of Columbia, so D.C. There's all kinds of paranormal stuff happening there. Any day in the government, there's all kinds of weirdness going on in D.C. All right, so it says, my husband and I purchased and moved into a brand new apartment in a very urban area. For the first few months, we were settling in and didn't really notice anything out of the ordinary. And after about 4 months of living here, I started noticing a few odd things happening. Occasionally, I would see something out of the corner of my eye that looked like it was human-shaped. For the most frequent occurrence was that the water in the kitchen would turn itself off and on. I would also find the lights on when I was sure I had turned them off, and I would find household items out of place, and the light in our bedroom started turning itself off and on, and when we were right there in the room. I started to think that the place was haunted. My husband tried to write it all off as water pressure changes or construction defects, and he did have a point. The faucet that was turning off and on was the one that could easily be influenced by odd pressure changes that do happen in new high-rise buildings. The light that was turning off and on was the one on a timer that could have been triggered by stray signals from somebody's remote or something like that. The one thing that made me wonder if this was all happening by design was that often the lights going off and on or the water going off and on would happen when we were talking about the possibility of a ghost. Almost like some intelligence was trying to make a point. Knowing that something like this could easily be explainable, I started talking to the ghost, and I said that things like that were happening were all really relatively easy to explain away, as if someone was trying to communicate with me or get my attention, they would have to work a little harder. Things changed after that. The lights that were turning off and on were lights on a switch and not on a timer. We started finding the bathroom faucet on at different times, a different type of faucet that is harder to turn on and off. The toilet seat started to be left in the up position, which we never do. We have cats that like playing in there, and the things that had first caught our attention stopped, and these more difficult to explain away things started happening instead. Our cats react to what is going on, and I've seen my older cat get up on his hind legs and dance across the room like he's trying to grab onto something that is just out of his reach. Our younger cat, who is a lot more skittish, often gets freaked out and runs away from something, while the older cat goes toward the area they are looking at and acts like he's greeting some friend. When we adopted our youngest cat, we were keeping her segregated in our bathroom, and the light went on by itself. She freaked out. I got mad and yelled at the ghosts that they were scaring the baby, and I would not have that. For about 4 weeks, everything was very quiet and nothing happened, but then slowly things resumed. One day I was in the bathroom with both cats, and it sounded like our front door opened. I was so convinced that it did that I called out to my husband asking him what he was doing home so early. Both cats ran toward the front door like they usually do to say hi to my husband when he gets home from work, and I heard the sound of footsteps coming down the hall, but when they passed the bedroom door, nobody was there. The younger cat freaked out, ran to me, and jumped in my arms, and the older cat followed the sound of the footsteps into the kitchen where they just stopped. Sometimes I think the ghost has a bit of a sense of humor. I was watching a DVD of the show Ghost Hunters, and there was a crash in the kitchen, and the pans were thrown off the stove. Both cats were laying on me at the time, which eliminated the most obvious cause, and it scared the heck out of me since I was watching a tense episode. And then after I settled in again, the water in the bathroom started turning itself off and on. Probably the weirdest thing that has happened is hearing someone say, "Hello, hello," when no one else was around. I was packing to go on a trip and had dragged my suitcase into our entryway. The youngest cat was riding on the suitcase, and I turned towards our living room where I distinctly heard a voice say, "Hello, hello." It sounded like a male voice. The voice had an odd, flat quality to it. Every hair on my body stood on end, and the cat also heard it because every hair on her body also stood on end, and she jumped into my arms and tried to crawl into my shirt. I said hello back and asked if there's anything I could do to help them get to the other side, and asked if they were here to tell me something, but there was no response. I could go on and on about the little things that have convinced me that someone else is here. I've had a few other things happen in my adult life that were odd, mostly in connection with my mom's death, but for some reason I don't feel this is my mom. I don't feel scared, and don't feel that this ghost or spirit is malicious in any way. I've come to believe that they want to communicate with me for a reason other than to let me know they are here. I just don't know what or why, but when the time comes, I hope I am paying attention. Wow, that person is really, really well grounded with all this. That's excellent. That's about as perfect as it can be. I mean, if you're going to live with something, if you don't mind if they're there, if you just, have rules. Like the cat was getting scared, boom, don't do that. Don't do that. You're freaking out the baby. That's not okay. What happened? It stopped. Generally, you state your intentions, and most often these spirits are not trying to throw your life into chaos. They're just trying to be acknowledged, I think, and you acknowledge them with kindness and with love, and make the rules clear. Make it clear what you want, what you don't want. And if they're a decent spirit, they're going to acknowledge that and follow that guideline. But if they're not a good spirit, if the crap that bothers you still happens, then I guess you know that it's a problematic kind of haunting and you need to get rid of it. So just some things to think about, of course, but I think that that's pretty powerful. And this person really has it dialed in. Great job, whoever you are. You did a fantastic job. You're doing it right, which is not easy to do in a haunting. I mean, hauntings they're unnerving at the least. At the most, they can be terrifying. We just don't expect things to happen, and they do happen. And everybody gets that chill going up your spine. I mean, everybody. I get that. I've been around weird things like this a lot in my life, and when things happen, it still makes your hackles go up, but you just kind of, send out the feelers like what's going on. And generally it's not a bad thing. I really believe most hauntings are not negative. They're just there. They just want to be acknowledged. They just want to be maybe validated a little bit. So to acknowledge and to welcome it is fine, as long as you feel like it's a comfortable kind of situation. If you feel like it's negative, then definitely do what you can to get rid of it, or bring someone in that can. But cool story. The next one's coming out of Texas. Another long one. Man, I pulled some long ones for this show. But we got time, and I want to make sure you feel entertained. So I'm going to read them for you, but I'm going to take a drink first because there's only so much a voice can do. I'm really hoping the scheduling thing works out good for me to schedule this episode to be released at the normal time. Um, I've never done it before, so if you're watching this and it started on Tuesday night, which is the 11th at 7 p.m. Pacific time, if it started on that time, then I did it right. If you're watching it some other time and and I don't know what the hell went wrong, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that. So we'll see. But let's get to the next story. Still a little mucusy from that damn cold. Ugh. But I'm better. Every day a little better. So this is Texas. Let me first start off by saying there are many things that go on in my family, like relatives calling after they have passed. Oh, wow. Or scents coming from a room to comfort you or right before something happens. My mom used to tell me about these things growing up when we were old enough to understand, and I never really put much thought into them, but I think on a personal level, I really didn't want to believe in them. In 1999, I experienced my first of many visits, as I like to call them. My ex and daughter's father committed suicide. Oh, I'm so sorry. I experienced the first visit while at the viewing in the funeral home, and they've happened many, many times after that, to the point that my daughter has gotten really afraid to be in her room alone. I couldn't understand why she was all of a sudden afraid at the age of 9. She was with me one night in my room and looked out the window towards the den, and I will never forget the look on her face. It chilled me so much. I had to get up and close the door. She proceeded to tell me that there was a man sitting on our couch, and at first I reassured her that no one was in the house, and the look on her face and her actions proved me wrong. I left it alone after closing the door, and we didn't speak of it any further that night. She did sleep with me that night. The next day, I asked her to describe who she saw, and down to the color of the baseball cap, he was her father. I explained this to her and told her that he was not there to hurt her. He was probably wanting to check up on her and look over her. I explained to her that if he really scares you, you can ask him to leave. I don't know if she ever did this or not, but to this day we've had nothing go on involving him. He's been around us since the day at the funeral home and he will have been gone 9 years next year. The couch event happened last year. Now getting on to the real purpose of the story and writing, my papa passed away in November 6th of 2007. I was always closest to my papa and really enjoyed his company the older we got. I'd love to sit and hear his stories that he would tell over and over again. His health started going downhill about August of this year. He slowly was not able to get around at all, and he started sleeping more and more every day. He started to not be able to understand things that were going on all around him. And as my grandmother and aunt took him to the doctor appointments, and he started fighting the nurses and the doctors, around the beginning of September, he began complaining that it hurt to eat or drink anything. And as the doctors did scopes on his throat, there seems to be nothing wrong. There was conversation of a feeding tube, which he said no, he wouldn't do that. And he just stopped eating and drinking altogether, and he was just being really mean to the nurses that were trying to take care of him and run tests. After a few weeks of moving him around from hospitals and nursing homes, they decided to bring him home and set him up so he could rest in his home. And during this period, I was really sick and was told I couldn't and shouldn't go see him, as he may catch something from me and worsen. I stayed away for almost 2 months, as it took me that long to get well. My grandmother's birthday was November 5th, and I called her and spoke with her and said I was coming over to see them the next day, and I wanted to make sure they could be around and not out at doctor's appointments, and she assured me they would be, and I told her I would see them tomorrow. That evening, as I was deep asleep, I was shaken awake, and at that moment, I opened my eyes. I assumed it was one of my children that had a nightmare or something. However, I opened my eyes to a lady with short brown hair standing at my side of my bed with her face directly over mine. It startled me, so I attempted to move, but felt as though my covers were being held tight, so I couldn't move. I tried to say something, but I was unable to speak. She was directly over my face, about a foot from my face, with her eyes looking directly at me and her mouth open in a strange, almost scary sort of way. She never said anything, but only stayed that way for a few minutes to make sure I was fully awake, I guess. She then turned and walked towards my bedroom door, and once she got to my bedroom door, it was like she just vanished. The door never opened or anything, and I was just shocked, just trying to figure out what had happened. Was I dreaming? Was I awake? I finally was able to move and just laid most of the night awake in my bed. Now, I've had so many visits in the past 9 years that they usually don't freak me out. However, this one bothered me. There was something strange about the entire ordeal. I got up the next morning, and as I had gotten out of the shower and was starting to get ready to go to my grandparents' house, my mom called me. She started talking as if I knew what was going on. I learned that they had given Papa 24 hours, if that, so I threw on some clothes and went and got my mom, and we arrived at the house. My aunt, uncle, and father were already at the house. I wasn't sure what to expect as I had not seen him in a while, and as I walked in the room, he laid in this hospital bed and his mouth open, very sick, and everyone else teared up and got emotional, and I sort of just looked at him, and I didn't leave that room or his side, but only to go to the bathroom and for about a 20-minute break all day. My mom later told me I was stubborn and wouldn't leave him. But I wanted to be there with him, even if I wasn't sure he knew I was there, and I felt like I'd missed a lot of time with him as he progressed into this state, and I wanted to spend as much time as I could with him. He was going quickly, and I didn't want to miss a single second. I held his hand and rubbed his arm, and as they were so cold, and there were a few times he raised his eyebrows or pushed on the nurse as she tried to take his temp. I knew he was still there with us and could hear us. The nurse had told us that we should talk to him to reassure him, but that's a hard thing to do. As the day and early night went on, I sat and watched him. I would count his breaths and rub his hand, and I would catch myself saying, "Inside, breathe, Papa, breathe." I didn't really want him to hang on, as I knew he was in pain, but I didn't want to let go of him just yet. He finally got to where he started taking one breath, and then he would stop for a minute, over and over again, as he had so many different breathing patterns all day, and I knew it was close. I looked over at the nurse and told her. She got her watch, and we both stared, and as I moved my chair up to his bed really close so that I can continue to hold his hand and rub his shoulder and put my head down towards him, I started to cry and was very overwhelmed all of a sudden. I looked at his face, and his mouth was different, more peacefully open. His face didn't look like it had looked that morning, and he seemed more at ease. And I finally, as I was holding him, said, "It's okay, Papa, go ahead and go. We will be okay." He never took another breath after that. After we buried him and later spoke about all that went on, I finally told about the brown-haired lady the night before I went to see him. It freaks me out and gives me chills to speak about her to this day. My mom seems to think she was telling me I had to go the next day. What is really strange is that she held her mouth the exact way my papa was laying there with his open most of the day. Maybe she was trying to tell me to go see him. I hope I never see her again. Wow. That's wild. Powerful story, though. All right, so this one's coming from Michigan. Michigan. My boyfriend Jason and I have been together about 6 months now, and he's lived in his apartment for almost a year, and I still technically live at home with my folks. However, I do spend a lot of time at his place whether or not he is home. And ever since I've been coming over, I've felt a strange presence in his apartment. I constantly feel as though I am being watched at an uncomfortably close distance, and there's also a constant tapping and banging on the walls, and the tapping and banging is almost rhythmic and always happens when I feel like I'm being watched. No one is in the apartment next to us, so I've ruled out the neighbors. And also in the computer room, the window and door will open and close on their own. However, the room I hate to go in the most is the utility room. The utility room feels as if there's an ominous presence in it that definitely does not want you there, no matter how tightly you close the door. It will always be cracked open within 15 minutes as though someone is peeking out at you. The lights also tend to flicker on and off throughout the apartment, not to mention gusts of wind when there isn't any window open and what sounds like very soft whispering. When all this first started happening to me, I was usually there by myself, and I would then, of course, ask my boyfriend about it, and he would say something like, "Oh, that's probably just the walls settling or something." However, one day I'd come over for dinner and he asked me if I'd ever gotten stuck in the computer room. I asked him what he meant by stuck, and he said the door slammed shut and he couldn't get it open again. He said it had taken him almost 10 minutes to be able to pry the door open. I could tell he was really shaken up by this. Needless to say, we're currently looking for a new place to live. However, for the time being, we're still stuck there. Yeah, I would encourage you to find somewhere else. Obviously, that whatever is there doesn't want you there. Time to get some help. I'm thinking if you get locked in your own room, that's an absolute violation. that is an absolute violation. And then the gloves are off. You gotta call in some big shots and call in the big guns. And if you ever get in a situation like that, ladies and gentlemen, where you feel you're absolutely overwhelmed by a haunting, please reach out to us. We have some of those big guns that are happy to help at no charge at all. They just want to help. So, and we've had a lot of people get help and have been helped by these people, and wonderful response from people about these individuals who do help in situations like this. So please let us know. That's one thing I'm really proud of with the show is that we have resources. We just last Friday night on the show we had Barb Charlton on, and she does a lot of help with emotional blockages and stuff and healings, and she wants to help people that have been through traumatic paranormal events, whether it's cryptid, UFO, ghost, whatever. A lot of people that go through those situations are stuck in that emotional state. There's hunters that won't hunt anymore because they saw a Bigfoot and they don't know how to process that emotion, and it's just stuck. There are, people that are having a hard time living in their home or, have experienced something absolutely terrifying and they feel that they're just in a bad place. So Barb herself has reached out to say, she's happy to help. No charge. She just wants to help, and she can do it remotely through like Skype or something. She can, give you sessions, and her technique is called tapping, and it deals with meridians and energy blockages, and it sounds like a really cool process. And it's really cool to have that as well. So we've got paranormal investigators that are willing to help. We've got psychics that are willing to help, and now we have some healer. And actually, one of our psychics, Diane, is a healer as well. So we've got a lot of resources for those that might need it. So definitely reach out to us if you need a hand. The next one's coming from Massachusetts. And this has to be the most significant haunting that not only I experienced, but my entire family. This happened years ago, and I was living in Connecticut at the time with my sister and her son, who was 2, and my son, who was 2 also. I was pregnant with my daughter at that time, and we had moved into a very nice 4-bedroom apartment. When we first moved in, everything was how should we say normal. Everything was how should we say normal. Okay. About 6 months of living in this apartment, very strange things started to happen. The cabinet doors in the kitchen would be open in the morning, and when we knew that we closed them the night before. And the hall light would never work no matter who fixed it. We even had the management of the complex have an electrician man come and check it out, and even he said there's no reason that the light would not work. These things have made my sister and I sort of laugh, but a couple of months went by and our experiences started to become even more strange, even more scary. Our son's bedroom was always freezing no matter how high we had the heat. My son would not sleep in it at all, and I could put him there and he would cry and scream, and I hadn't slept alone for a long time. And our downstairs closet always smelt like kerosene, which really scared us, and calling the fire department, and they couldn't explain the smell, but told us that it wouldn't harm us, and they ran different carbon tests. Well, one night when my mom babysat my nephew while my sister was at work, she was sitting on the couch reading, and my nephew was supposedly sleeping in the freezing room. My mom heard him talking to someone. When she went to check on him, he was sitting up on his bed, and she asked him, "Who are you talking to?" And he said, "The mean bubby," Yiddish word for grandmother. In the window told me she would be back. Now to remind you, he is only 2, maybe 2.5. My mom was freaked. When she told me this story, it sent chills down my spine. I do have more stories about this apartment, and I feel that I made this story long enough, but I really feel that this was more significant than some of the others. I wish I did some research on this apartment. I can only imagine the history. I look forward to hearing from you all. Wow. So there's a mean grandmother there, a mean bubby. All right, so one more. I think one more. Maybe we'll get a couple more. We'll see how it goes here. I got to check the time, make sure we're not too far over or too far under. So this one is coming out of Florida. Yeah, it's not real long. I'm telling a story that I didn't experience, but one that my husband has relayed to me. I've recently become very interested in ghost phenomena, so I decided to post his story on this site, and I began in a small and not very old home. The home was probably built in the early 1980s, and that was owned by my husband's late father. The home is located in northern Georgia, the foothills of the Appalachians, and the home is located on a paved road with a few other homes around. But the surrounding area consists of the Chattahoochee National Forest. My husband has relayed several strange happenings that he and others experienced when he was in his teens. The first thing that my husband told me was that one night, about 15 years ago, he saw a woman dressed in Victorian period clothing walk across his backyard from the woods. He was outside at the time on the other end of the yard, and the woman was a ghostly apparition. He was sure of it. She went to the back door and then left the way she came. He also told me of the time when he had a friend sleep over. While trying to sleep, his friend felt something touch his feet. This was pretty frightening for both of them. Both my husband... No, sorry, honey, I'm still doing the show. I'll be done in about 10 minutes, okay?
Can I leave the door open?
Yeah, you can leave the door open. The minion arrives. All right. Oh, you're going to do it with me? So let me finish reading the story, okay? Okay.
No, I want to read the story.
You want to read the story? I don't know if you're really reading yet, though, are you?
Yeah, but I could listen to you reading.
Okay, you can listen to me
I
reading.
want to hear the voice with headphones.
You want to hear the voice with headphones? Okay, you can use my headphones. Okay. All right, so where were we? He also told me of the time that he had a friend sleep over. While trying to go to sleep, his friend felt something touch his feet. This was pretty frightening for both of them. Both my husband and his friend have spoken of the strange experiences in that same room, but have not went into much detail. One other thing that my husband shared with me was that of a mirror. He claims he saw strange things in the mirror, and he came across to me like this was evil in nature and possibly some sort of gateway. My husband used to dabble as a teen in things that he shouldn't have, and such as occult and Satanism, and I'm not sure how heavily. I do know that he is not involved anymore, and I guess it was a teenage fad, as we are both Christian now. Also, my husband did not want to throw away the mirror, but we kept it for years, put away in an old outbuilding. And I can't remember what happened to it. I think it broke or got thrown away in one of our moves. In a way, it just seems to have disappeared. Another tidbit of information about this home is that after my father-in-law died in the home of ALS, we moved into the home and I never experienced anything strange except maybe fear from what I had heard. But my aunt came and visit one day and she had not known anything that I'd just written. And she told my mother that she sensed something evil on the property. And my aunt seems pretty reliable and she has always been into things like smudging her home. The reason I write this story is just to get some opinions on it, and I would like to know more about my husband's experiences. And although I don't want to go against my religion or experience anything evil, I would like to learn how to become more in tune with the other side and possibly have an experience. So here's the thing. I don't think that being psychic is necessarily anti any religion. It doesn't negate or it's not against Christianity in my opinion. Some people would disagree with that, and that's fine. I don't pretend to preach people's religions. You can believe what you want, but I don't think there's anything negative about it. I think that these gifts are, quote unquote, God-given. And so as such, I don't see how that could be negative or evil, but that's my own opinion, I guess. Let me check the time on this show to make sure. Let's see. No, we got time. We still got time for more. So let me crack open another one here, and we'll see where this takes us. All right. Oh, I don't know if I want to. No, I don't want to read this one. That's one of those investigator ones. They read like logs, and logs are not really entertaining. So I'll open a couple more, and we'll see how long these are. This one's kind of it's shorter, I guess, but this is from Pennsylvania. It was a bright summer day. As always, my mom was outside calling me and my two older sisters to come out swimming. My mom loves to swim. My dad working on anything that he can get his hands on, and me, who also loves to swim, but loves the computer more at times.
Is it about you?
No, these are stories other people have experienced. These aren't about me. This is just me reading their stories.
Okay.
Yeah. But I decided to take a break from swimming and get online to check my mail and stuff. And, well, with me, as with a lot of other people, only saying that you're going to be on the computer for 15 minutes, it turns out to be an hour and 15 minutes, and you don't even mean to. I was in my den where the computer is, typing to friends, when all of a sudden I felt a chilling breeze pass me by. No windows were open, and the door was shut. I stopped for a second and then just went along typing. And that's when I heard laughing. It wasn't like a little 5-year-old small laugh. It was like a evil, demonic giggle. It wasn't pleasant at all, and I stopped typing. I stopped typing again when it stopped. I looked around the room to see if I could find where the giggles were coming from. I just stopped and laughed at myself because now I'm going crazy and I think I'm hearing demons laughing at me. If someone told you that, you would think they were crazy too, so I just didn't bother with it and started on typing again. Well, not long after that, I start to hear growls. No, not dog growls, like hissing, mad, evil. Not dog growls. It was like hissing, mad, evil, demonic-like growls. And this time, it wasn't only growls, it was evil giggling as well. Both giggles and growls only lasted a few seconds, and then went away for another second, I think, and then came back. It says secant, S-E-C-A-N-T, but I think they meant second. So I started to get scared, and I quickly got up and went over to see if I could find where the sounds were coming from. And as I followed them, I found the growls and giggles were all coming from the corner. Now, I know that I was swimming half the day, and I'm a little tired and all, but I know I'm not losing my mind. It stopped right away after I saw where it was coming from. After I stood there for a minute, I got another chill and just walked over to the computer and said bye to my friends and got the heck out of there. I thought that was the weirdest thing, so a few days later I told my best friends, Sabina, what had just happened, and she said maybe I was hearing stuff, but I know I was just not hearing stuff. And after a while, I got started thinking if Sabine was right. Sabina, yeah. And maybe I was just hearing stuff. So I was truly believing I didn't hear anything and I was just tired. A few days later, I was in my den on the computer again and I hear the evil giggles again. So now I know I wasn't hearing things. After I heard the giggles, I got out of there as fast as I could. After that, I never heard the growls or giggles again. Wow, that's pretty powerful. I don't know. Well, I'm glad they went away for what that's worth, but the question is what the hell were they and why were they there? I don't know. That kind of stuff is weird. Weirdness. One more story. My mom and dad are pretty quiet about things that happened to us, but they didn't like to tell stories because no one believes us anyway, except my great grandma, but she can't help us anymore because my grandmother told her to stop feeding my imagination. What I'm about to tell you is going to sound crazy, but it happened to me. Mom tries to help, but she is basically clueless, even when things happen to her too. So she walks around the house saying the Indian prayer to the Great Spirit and telling things not to harm us kids, but I don't think it's working. When I was much younger, before my brother was born, we lived in a mobile home park, and in our house I had a bedroom in the front and my parents were in the back with a huge bathtub that I liked to play in. Mom would bless the bathwater with lavender and fill it all the way up so I could play. No reason for that. Great grandma just told her that it should be done when cleansing. One day I looked in the mirrors above the sinks and I saw a woman who looked very sad sitting on the back of the tub with her feet in the water. I remember turning around and only seeing the wall, so I screamed at Mom to help and she grabbed me out of the tub and asked what was wrong, but I couldn't tell her. The same woman was in my bathroom, and I hated going in there. Mom and Dad made it a princess bathroom so that I would, but when I wanted to take a bath, the woman was laying in the tub. At times when I would go in there, the whole room looked different. The walls would have carpeting on it all the way up to the ceiling, and the window was covered with a board. Sometimes I would see something red all over the toilet, sink, and tub. It was a small bathroom, so everything was close together. Mom couldn't use it unless the door was left open. She never told me why. My bedroom was the worst. The woman was there with a little girl, and they would hug each other and sit on the window seat like they were watching for someone to come home, because they would jump up and run out of the room, and they always seemed either scared or sad. At night, something would come out of the closet. It was big because it would pull the door off the track, and it would be hanging there when we all got up. I never saw it because when I would hear it coming, I got out of there. I just started sleeping on the living room couch. Lots of other things were happening. Sorry, I hear my kid's videos he's watching. Lots of other things happened in that house and others. Dad moved us out of there when Mom got pregnant with my brother because she had already lost 3 babies there, so we said we needed a bigger place, but I think he saw things too. I caught him talking to Mom a couple of times before she even got home. Uh-huh. Well, there you have it. That'll definitely start it off, but I think that about wraps up our journey here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed this version of the Paranormal Portal. I hope it's playing correctly and everything goes well, but I think it should be fine. But if not, I do apologize, but I'm going to, I don't know. I'll be back, of course. So when you're watching this, it'll be Tuesday. So I'll be back tomorrow with Dawn for our normal Mayhem Wednesday show. So I hope you guys will be here for that. Again, check out the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Lots of great shows. We're putting a lot of love and tenderness into it and lots of paranormal, of course. But I hope you guys have checked it out. If you haven't, please do. It's the Paranormal Portal on wherever you get podcasts from. So you can go to iHeart, iTunes, Spotify. Pandora has been a big audience for us. iTunes or Apple and Pandora have been huge for us. But, there's all kinds of different podcasting services out there where you can get podcasts and get them on your phone or wherever. The nice thing about the podcasts is that you can take them with you. You can download them and then play them wherever you are. If you know you're going to be going somewhere on a drive and you don't have internet over the road, you can just download the podcasts and push play and start driving. We can be with you wherever you are. So anyway, guys, I hope you're having a great night. Thank you for tuning in. As always, spread the word about the Paranormal Portal to everyone you know who loves the paranormal as well. But that's going to wrap up our show tonight. So love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day and remember to laugh as much as you can. All right, guys. Love you. And I'll be back soon. Good night. Sweet dreams.